Final speaker of the day, our wonderful delegate from right here in Old Town in Alexandria, Mark Levine.
Paul and Alfonso and John and Katie and Jean and really thanks. I mean, Boyd Walker can organize a rally from Atlanta. That's pretty amazing. And Paul and Cindy Cunningham did a great job in getting this all started, and now she's down in Fredericksburg speaking there, and Stare Calhoun, and I love the grassroots. Oh my God, y'all are amazing. And Alfonso's right about all the good that you did to get us to this day. I agree with everything that everyone said here. I'm a proud Democrat. I believe in all those causes. But that's actually not why I'm here today. I'm not here as a Democrat. Before I'm a Democrat, I'm an American.
Absolutely.
And before, and before I advocate for specific laws, I believe in the rule of law. Because if we don't live by the rule of law, we have nothing. Then we are just... Some of you may not know this, I'm a veteran of the Bush v. Gore fight. I still have scars to show for it. The Congressional Black Caucus hired me to write the brief challenging the 2000 Florida electors, that brief in Congress, and I'm still in pain. I haven't gotten over that yet. But one thing I got from that time is a fierce interest in election law. I read all the briefs in Bush v. Gore, every single one of them. You want to talk sometime? I know all the facts of that case in detail, and I can tell you why Gore won Florida, and it's a long story. But I've been looking at the law in this case. And so today, and the reason I passed out handouts, and I hope all of you got one, is I want to go through the law. Because the reason why we need a new election in the 28th district, and the reason why Shelley Simons rightfully won in the 94th district is not because they're good Democrats, although they are good Democrats. But that's not why they should have rights. The rights are right here in the law. So I want to go through this. And I've read all the briefs. I've read both sides' briefs. I'm that big a nerd. I read it all. And I want to tell you what I distilled from the briefs. Let's start with Fredericksburg. Let's start with Josh Cole. It's facts about House District 28. Here's what we know. Let me give you a little historical context. 53 years ago, in the Commonwealth of Virginia, in 1964, African-American Virginians came to vote and were turned away. They'd done everything that they were supposed to do. They were legally registered to vote. Sometimes they risked their lives to get that voter registration. In fact, I had an aunt that went down to Mississippi Freedom Summer in 1964 to help in Mississippi.
Bravo.
That was an amazing summer. They went, they risked their lives, they went to vote, and they were said, well, you know, how many jelly beans are in this jar? Or please read the entire Constitution, or all kinds of questions. And frankly, I think if they guessed the number of jelly beans right, they still wouldn't have been allowed to vote. But what happened in 1964? In 1965? We had the Great Voting Rights Act. And because of that Great Voting Rights Act, we thought those Jim Crow days were past. Well, that happened 53 years ago. Do you know what happened 53 days ago on November 7th? 53 days ago on November 7th, 86 people walked into their polling place in Fredericksburg, Virginia, and said, I'm duly registered to vote, I'm ready to vote, I want to vote. Some of them said, I want to vote for Josh Cole, a young African-American, really great guy if you haven't met him. He's really an upcoming leader no matter what happens. And they were turned away. You will not be allowed to vote. But the voters said, but I'm registered. Here's my registration. You will not be allowed to vote. And they said, okay, well, give me a provisional ballot. No, we won't give you a provisional ballot. But Virginia law says you have to do that. We don't care. But federal law, the federal law, Help America Vote Act, passed after Bush v. Gore, says you are required to give a voter who asks for a provisional ballot, and the registrar said, no, get out. One voter, very good voter, points up to the wall that shows the district map. And she says, I live here. And it's not even on the border, folks. It's well within. It's in Fredericksburg. It's in the gerrymandered part that was still in the 28th district. She said, I live here. So the election officials looked up at the map. They looked at her, and they tore down the map. This is all facts. This is affidavit. This is all sworn testimony. They tore down the map. And when asked why they turned them out on the map, they said they were afraid that other voters would find out that they were legally allowed to vote and they weren't able to vote. And they said, you know what? It doesn't matter if a whole bunch of people aren't allowed to vote, because it can always go to the House of Delegates and let them decide. This is all in testimony. We're just going to let it go to the House of Delegates. We're not going to let the people of Fredericksburg choose their representative. We're going to let a bunch of people that they didn't elect, that don't live in Fredericksburg, then controlled by Republicans, we're going to let them decide who the delegate should be. Instead of letting the voters decide. 86 people turned away at the polls. And by the way, what time woman complained? You might find this relevant. Shortly after 9 a.m. There was plenty of time to fix this. No, they couldn't have helped the ones that voted from 6 to 9. But from 9 all the way to the end of the voting day, 7 p.m., they could have fixed it. And instead they threw away the map. My friends, this is not some garden variety election irregularity. This is not, oh, well, the registrar slipped and was late and the polls opened at 6:15 instead of 6. Bad, they should open at 6. That's garden variety election irregularity. This is election officials saying, you want to vote? No! You can't, but here's my right to vote. Here's my card. Here's where I live. Can I get a provisional ballot? No, go home. That's what's at stake here. And it gets worse. Because not only were 86 people turned away at the polls, but there are 61 illegal ballots stuffed in that ballot box. 61 people who have no right to vote there having their votes in there. Imagine how angry the people in Alabama would be if I stuffed a ballot right there and tried to vote in that Senate race, as much as I love Doug Jones. I had no right to vote in Alabama. And people in the wrong district had no right to vote here. So in this number that everyone agrees is fake, everyone, Republicans, Democrats, registrars, everyone in Virginia, everyone who's looked at it agrees that the number that has been certified is false. Certification is supposed to mean true. You certify something's true, that's what the word means. Everyone agrees this 73 vote margin is false because there are 147 wrong ballots. There's 61 illegal ballots stuffed in, we don't know who they are, they're all mixed in, 61 ballots that shouldn't be there, and even more importantly, 86 people who were denied the right to vote. This happened 53 days ago, not 53 years ago. The only remedy is under the United States Constitution. Many of you know I carry it with me wherever I go. The only remedy is right here in the Equal Protection Clause, the 14th Amendment. It is illegal, it is unlawful, it's unconstitutional to say, you voters, you can vote, but you other voters, you can't vote. Some are saying it's just a mistake. Maybe it was, I don't know. Supposedly the woman who may have done this is no longer with us. But it doesn't matter to me whether it was intentional or not. And I'll tell you this though, when they throw away the map, that's pretty bad. It's kind of like, right, the little kid comes with the chocolate on his mouth and mom says, did you raid the cookie jar? And he, no. Wipe away the evidence, right? Or another example what I was thinking is if a guy goes to his boss and says, hey boss, you know, you owe me that money that's in our contract. And the boss says, yeah, show me the contract. He says, here, right here, you owe me the money. And then he rips up the contract, right? They ripped up the map. The voter went home, checked more maps, and said, hey, you know, I'm right. And she said to her husband, watch out. And then he wasn't allowed to vote either. Now, this is not a garden variety problem. In fact, I've talked with election officials up and down Virginia. No one knows of any instance, I've not heard of one, of this happening in the 400 years the House of Delegates has been around. The oldest elected body in the Western Hemisphere. This is not a garden variety election era. This goes to the very heart of what it means to be an American. If we don't have the right to choose our representatives, then what are we? Then we're no better than tyranny. And it's really wrong for the people that said, well, just let the House of Delegates choose. No, the people of Fredericksburg should choose their own delegate. The only way they can do that is a free and fair election, and we need to have a fair election. And I've heard good things about this judge that Gene says. I think the judge respects the Constitution, and I think the judge knows the law, and I want you to know the law, because I don't want you to be anywhere mistaken about what happened in Fredericksburg. Now I want to turn to House District 94. Shelley Simons. I'm getting to the weeds, folks. I'm a lawyer, I'm a nerd. I brought your test here, all right? I have for you, in detail, without a word taken out, the entire text of the Code of Virginia 24.2-802D, okay? It says procedure for recount. I love the woman, recounts have rules for a reason. I want you to flip over to the back. The heart of it is on the back page. Let's go read some law together. All right, let's have a law class. Well, actually, before you flip over the back, it talks about what the redetermination of the vote in a recount shall be conducted as follows. And it gives details. You run it through the machines, you remove the overvotes and undervotes, you count those by hand. That's the redetermination conducted as follows. 1, 2, 3, spelled out. Then on the back, there shall be only one redetermination of the vote in each precinct. You can't do, you're no do-overs. You do it once, otherwise this can go on forever. The heart of this law is contained in the next 2 paragraphs. I really want you to understand this, and I want you to explain it to all your friends and post it on Facebook. It's really important. The first paragraph begins, at the conclusion of the recount of each precinct. Second paragraph begins, at the conclusion of the recount of all precincts. Now those are different things. They're in 2 different paragraphs. One is what you do after each precinct, and it gives a whole procedure. And one is what you do when they're all done, at the conclusion of all precincts. This is not ambiguous. This is not questionable. Here's what you do with each precinct, here's what you do with all precincts. So what do? At the conclusion of each precinct, you go around, you see what ballots were cast, what the votes were, and then the recount official shall, not mandatory, not may, they shall, that's the strongest thing the law can say, they shall submit the ballots as to the validity of which questions exist to the court. They give the written statement of any one recount official challenging a ballot is sufficient. If you don't like a ballot when you're examining it precinct by precinct by precinct, you say, I'm putting this one aside. It only takes one recount official. I'm putting this aside. We're going to let the court look at that one. But you do it at each precinct. Now, why would they do that? Why do they have to do it precinct by precinct? And recount officials will tell you. They go, they open a box, they get it all together, they work it out. We agree this is for Simons and this is for Yancey, and these 2 we disagree on. We're putting them aside. These are question ballots, contested ballots. We're sending those to the court. And then they seal the box, and they put it away, and they go on to the next precinct. And that is what they did in the 94th District. Those of us who are following with bated breath, on Twitter and Facebook, you can see the whiteboard. And at the 17th of the 23rd precincts, they hit Warwick Precinct. Now, at this point, Shelley Simons was still behind by 6. I'm quite sure the Republicans thought Yancey's got it made. We've gone through 17 precincts. The lead dwindled from 10 to 6. We got 6 more. He's got it made. They come to the Warwick Precinct. They get that ballot that Gene's talking about. They all agree that's a clear overcount. And by the way, whoever wrote the ballot, first of all, it's a spoiled ballot. It comes out of the machine. And when you have a spoiled ballot that comes out of the machine, right, then what happens? The election official is supposed to say, hey, you got a spoiled ballot. And then they write spoiled, and the person gets a new ballot. Now, maybe the election official forgot to write spoiled, or maybe the voter ran out the door, or maybe the election official didn't notice that the ballot came out. Again, we don't really know what happened. But this is a ballot that frankly should never have been in the machine in the first place. But anyway, the machine, the ballot, if I want something, I often check it, right? If I'm like checking things, sometimes I put a dot and then I check it again, like I've done that thing. We don't know what this voter felt. The voter actually did two slashes to say they wanted to vote for Gillespie, and 1 slash for Simons, and another vote with a little curly line, and who knows what the voter wanted. But what we do know is this. Every election official at the time Warwick was counted had the right to submit the ballots, question the validity, submit it to the court. And they have to do it, it says, at the conclusion of each precinct. That's when it's done. Then the code goes on to say, and by the way, at the conclusion of each precinct, everyone agreed there was no problem. They went to the last precinct, the one that showed that Shelley Simons wins by 1 vote. And they did not question a single ballot. And everyone hit themselves on the back and said, we were good today. We were good. We didn't try to sneak one in. All Democrats and all Republicans signed off. This election was fair. The count was fair. We agreed on every single ballot. None are to be contested by the court. And then Shelley Simons, declared her victory. The Republicans conceded, and everyone agreed it was a fair process. And then apparently David Yancey's attorney talked to an election observer, and the next morning came up with a new challenge to the Warwick precinct. Let's go back to the law. Second paragraph. At the conclusion of the recount of all precincts, after allowing the parties to inspect the question ballots. The question ballots. What ballots? The ballots that we set aside. The ballots as to the validity of which questions exist. What does it mean when you say the question ballots? It doesn't say they can inspect any question ballots or any ballots or a question ballot. The ballots. Just the simple word the, right? If you say, I'm gonna ask a question of my love, that means one thing. If you say I'm gonna ask the question of my love, that means something very different. It's a very specific thing. You have to do the ballots as to which questions exist, the ones they set aside at each precinct. And then the court shall rule on the validity of the question ballots. The court, and this is important here for you lawyers in the room, the court has no jurisdiction to rule on ballots that haven't been questioned. After determining all matters pertaining to the recount, determination of the vote as raised by the parties. Which ones? Well, they can only inspect the question ballots. Which ones? These ballots set aside at the conclusion of each precinct. I want you to think why this is. They didn't have to write the code this way. They could just say, at the conclusion of the recount, people can raise up any question ballots and they can be brought to the court. If that were the case, at the conclusion of the recount of each precinct would have no meaning whatsoever. Right? You don't need to say that. Just say at the end of the recount, anyone have any questions, any bills, bring it to the court. The General Assembly could have written it this way. They could have put it all in one paragraph. Why have two separate paragraphs? One about each precinct and one about all recounts. I want you to think about why that is. If people are going to cheat on election day, it's really hard to do it precinct by precinct. Because at the time Warwick came up, their candidate's way ahead. Everyone knew this was a crazy ballot to focus on. And so they're like, you know what? This ballot's fine. This ballot's fine. And then it's sealed and then it's done. And there shall be only one redetermination. You're not allowed to open the sealed box again. You set aside the ones. The court can only rule on the ones in which questions exist. That's it. That's all they have power to do. And a court that makes a ruling outside its jurisdiction, this is basic black letter law, has no power at all. If a judge in Alabama and a judge in Rhode Island rules that these ballots are counted or not counted, what would we do? We would laugh. I don't care who you are. I don't care you're on the Supreme Court of Alabama or the Supreme Court of Rhode Island. You have no jurisdiction here. That's kind of funny. Go away. If a juvenile court judge in Virginia were to rule on whether a polluter could dump waste into the Rappahannock River, we'd say, Judge, I agree with you, but you're supposed to be talking about children and families. You have no right to go after corporate pollution. We love you, but you have no jurisdiction here. And one of the first things you learn in law school is if a court has no jurisdiction, its rulings are meaningless. They are empty. They have no power whatsoever. Now, let me say this. The court did not have much of a chance to do the right thing. The court originally was told there are no contested ballots. When there are no contested ballots, it has no jurisdiction because there's no question of ballots. It simply rubber stamps the process and all goes home. And everyone thought that was going to happen. Usually when you're going to file something for the judges, you file papers in advance. You let them know. You let the other side know. It's called due process. It's right here in my Constitution. None of that happened. A few minutes before the judges are to rubber stamp, because they have no power to do anything else, they say, wait! Open the seals! We have a new challenge. Yeah, we agreed at the end of each precinct, but we changed our mind. We want to question a ballot even though there is no legal right to question a ballot after the precinct is closed. We don't want to follow the Virginia code. We want to make up our own rules. Is that okay, judges? And to be fair, the judges didn't have legal briefs. They didn't ask for them. They didn't think they needed them. The parties were not allowed, you couldn't submit them. How do you submit a legal brief when you're there for a hearing and the judge says, what's the law? And you're like, I didn't know this was coming up. I didn't have due process, Your Honor. So it's all being reconsidered with very good legal briefs, and I read them and I liked them. And I hope the judges read the legal briefs and follow the Virginia Code. Because if you don't follow the code, I would argue their ruling is meaningless. There is no jurisdiction. There is no power. Courts have no power in Virginia to rule on ballots that haven't been questioned according to this process. So that's not a Democratic or Republican thing. That is a plea to judges to follow the law. It is a plea to all of you to explain this law. That's why I gave you the detail. That's why I gave you the whole code. I want you to understand in detail because you need to explain this because there's a lot of crazy stuff going on Facebook. And people don't understand why this isn't an ambiguous question. The law is clear. It may have been only one vote, but Shelley Simons won the election in House District 94. So thank you for coming today. Thank you for sitting through my legal lecture. I really want you to understand it. Yeah, you have a question? I'm happy to take questions.
I just want to ask you.
Yeah.
Next Thursday, there's going to be this hearing.
Friday.
Friday? Is it
Well,
Friday?
there's two things scheduled.
So tell us about
Let me tell you what's going to happen.
Yeah,
That's a great question. Let me tell you what's going to happen. In Shelley Simons' case, we hope the judges will rule on the recount. They now have the briefs. They didn't have them before. You know, judges can get the law wrong when they don't have a legal brief before them. I don't, you know, I'm not casting aspersion. But now they have the legal briefs. Now they have the opportunity to do the right thing. If they don't do the right thing by January 4th at 11 a.m., which is a Thursday, then the State Board of Elections says that they're going to draw it by lot. It's going to be a random decision, 50-50. Obviously the court has the opportunity to do the right thing before then, and I hope they do. That's Shelley Simons. On Friday, looking forward to some interesting days next week. On Friday, right here in Alexandria, before the Honorable Judge Ellis, District Court Judge, and Gene, you're not the only ones who sit in that courtroom. I'm going to be right there alongside you. All of you are welcome to come. It's an open case.
What time?
4:30. I think it's 4:30, but double check the court schedule, okay?
I honestly don't know the time. So
It may change. I think it's 4:30 p.m.
It's 4:30 p.m.
It's the United States District Courthouse right here in Alexandria.
Friday, it's Patent and Trade Office.
And please, if you go, please go. I want you to see it in action. But don't shout, don't disrupt. It's very important that we act lawfully. It's very important that we respect the proceedings, even if we disagree with them. I don't know what's going to happen. I hope for the best. And I really welcome you to go. This is democracy at work. You got to watch it, and I want you to be there. But I will ask people to respect just the decorum of it. And if you don't like the ruling and you want to go outside and complain, you know, feel free. But don't do that in the courtroom. I just want to ask you, as a personal favor to me, not to do that.
Leave your phone in the car. You can't bring it into the
You can't bring your cell phone in the courtroom. Yeah,
Correct.
that's a good point. Anyway, that's going to be decided on Friday. It is obviously my hope and wish that there's a new election. I mean, the cases are very different, but they both have to follow the law. In Shelley Simons' case, it's just a pure matter of Virginia code. In Josh Cole's case, it's a matter of the Constitution. It's a matter of 147 people, 86 being denied the right to vote, and 61 illegal ballots stuffed in there. Remember, Republicans made such a huge deal. There's voter fraud. Maybe an illegal alien stuffed a ballot. Well, there's 61 stuffed ballots here. There's like 5 cases of voter fraud in the last 10 years. But here's 61 ballots right here in Virginia. So the only fair way to do this, and that's the way other courts have done this, is to have another election. And I hope these judges do the right thing. But the reason that I'm so glad, and I know I've talked at length, but the reason I'm so glad that Paul and Lloyd, Cindy and Stair, and all my elected officials are here is because I want you to understand the law. That's why this is more of a lecture than a rally speech. I want you to understand exactly what went wrong and why, and what the legal procedures are and should be. Because all of you, I'm now deputizing as my communications people to get out there on social media, we all know that's where it happens, right? And let people know exactly what happened here and why it is legally wrong. Not legally wrong as Democrats, although I think most of us in this room are probably Democrats. But legally wrong as Americans. If you believe in the rule of law, Shelley Simons won that race. And if you believe in the Constitution, there's got to be a revote.